Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you happen to be in the world signing in. Welcome to what coworking operators need to know in 2025. This is our very first webinar of the year kicking off. My name is Jenna. I'm from the Optix team, from the CS team, and it's so cool to see lots of very familiar names. Samantha, back to back, saw you yesterday. Nice to see you again here, and Pablo, and yeah, so many familiar names popping in. So we're going to get started in about a minute, and we have two really incredible guests with us today for this conversation, who I will introduce in more detail in a moment. But just as we get started, as always, a few housekeeping items. We have in the bottom right-hand corner, we have our chat tab, and would love to see if you want to say hi and where people are signing in from today. I've already seen a few people from Mexico, lots of the US, Canada. We have a couple from New Zealand I'm seeing on the list here, which is very early for you in the day. So yes, feel free to drop by and say hello. It's an incredible global network of co-working and flex spaces. So it's always really wonderful to see where people are coming in from. So with that, as we go through this conversation, we have a lot to cover. If things are coming up to mind and you want to ask a question, the question tab is going to be the place to go. This allows you to upvote other people's questions. And so if you do have something on the mind that somebody else is also thinking, we can keep that nice and organized in our question tab. And yes, hello from Vancouver. Thank you, Kelly. All right, so with that, I think that's pretty much all the housekeeping we need to do. We'll let a few more people continue to sign in, but I'm going to jump right into it and introduce our speakers. So today we have Jerome and Jackie joining us, both from California, actually, which is, we're all on the Pacific Coast today, but two incredible backgrounds to be speaking to the topics that are most top of mind for both our clients and what we're seeing across the industry. So Jerome, owner and founder of BLANKspaces in California, I'm going to pass it off to you just to introduce yourself and what BLANKspaces is all about.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jerome. I founded BLANKspaces Coworking in 2008, which is now 17 years old. So we were the first coworking space in SoCal, and I think now the oldest continually operating coworking space in America. Anyways, I've been doing this for a while, so I've seen a lot. I'm also an architect, which means I'm actually I know a lot about the built environment, all the things that you're spending your money on upfront and on a recurring basis through rent, repairs, and maintenance.
Yeah, really exciting to have just your background in general, Jerome, so diverse and a lot of experience, 17 years in the industry, gives you the ability to say you're an expert. So Jackie, I'm going to pass it over to you, Pacific Workplaces, and feel free to introduce the business itself and what you're doing with the company.
Thanks, Jenna. Yeah, I'm Jackie Latragna. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Pacific Workplaces. We are also locally owned. We're located in California and Nevada. We were founded over 20 years ago, and we have 17 locations. So lots of history, but lots of fun. It's very family-like. We call ourselves pack mates, or pack for short.
Yeah, and well, I mean, in general, 17 locations is a huge amount of growth. So being able to speak to what you've created in that growth it's really wonderful to have that experience on the call. And the reason why Jerome and Jackie have been invited to join this conversation today is because the topics of interest for co-working and flex spaces, there's a lot of what Jerome and Jackie have experienced that speaks to what the majority of people are interested in learning more about this year. So today we're diving into marketing. We've got a lot of expertise on the line for that. We're diving into automation and AI. This has obviously taken over the world. And if you're not thinking about how to automate your space, if you're not thinking about technology, the reality is you're probably getting left behind. So getting a little bit more of a background for how Jerome and Jackie are thinking about this is really wonderful. We're also going to dive into member experience and virtual mail. So with that, I think we're going to dive right in. And Kelly, at any point, if you want to let us know you're going to launch a poll, I know we have a couple of those coming as well. Just give us a shout. But for the first topic, where I'd love to jump in today is actually marketing. We have a lot of interest in, whether you're a brand net new co-working space or whether you are a year in, 17 years in, marketing is usually the foundation of your goals for growth and sustainability. So we asked in December of 2023, we asked for our annual survey, what are your primary business goals? And almost 71% responded saying, grow my members. And 41% said increasing brand awareness. So we know that these are two of the most commonly stated goals. And with that, I want to jump into our first question, which is going to be, what do you think right now are some of the biggest challenges that operators in co-working are facing when it comes to marketing? And maybe I'll pass it off to you, Jackie, just being your background. We can start there, and Jerome, give you a moment to think as well.
Yeah, thank you. So, before this call, we were talking really briefly about how things in the industry are changing really quickly, and there's so much new stuff out there. And I feel like AI is such a buzzword, especially in marketing. And every time you log in to create a campaign, there's some beta AI tests that you can do. And I think the biggest challenge is like, what do I invest in? Like, where do I put my money? Where do I put my time and my resources? What's going to give me the payoff? And I think, with that, it's a good idea to practice a lot of discernment with all of these new things that are coming out. Everything's going to be shiny, but is everything really going to work the best for your specific space or your strategy? So if you've got like the time and the extra budget to experiment a little bit, I am all for that. But if you need to carve that out like the next quarter, because you don't have that right now, definitely rely on the tried and true methods, because those will never let you down. But yeah, that's the feeling that I get when I'm talking to people and when I see everything that's popping up in the space right now.
Nice. And so quick poll that's just gone out. Thank you, Kelly. Would love to hear from everybody on the line right now. What marketing channels are you working with? And also what's working for you? Maybe you're using 5 of those options in the pool, but maybe only 2 you're seeing a substantial ROI from. So take a moment. I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to close this one down from my end. And Jerome, I'll pass it over to you just while we're waiting to see some of those poll results. But what are your thoughts in terms of the greatest challenges that co-working spaces are facing right now with marketing?
I think it's more about the structural status of the office. And so while marketing is trying to attract people to come to your space, I think even right before that is the status of the industry. There's a big battle and debate about who's returning to the office, who's hybrid, who's work from home, and where does co-working play in that part. So your marketing would want to tell the story and tell the public what you're doing to address or attract the people in each one of those camps. So for example, when you're catering to the work from home people, are you a real refuge to the loneliness that is working from home? Are you the safer, less chaotic refuge from working in a noisy cafe? And then the remote workers or the hybrid workers, and then the whole arsenal of corporate enterprise users who don't have an office or don't want to go in the office or is allowed to go somewhere else. And of course, that plays into the economics of it. So I think, your marketing, if you're going to, in terms of outbound, will really need to emotionally connect with a large amount of these audiences, and that's the work from home and remote workers. But I think financially for the corporate users, really about how are you providing a solution that is even more productive or financially savvy than the choices that they are given right now. And that will vary from market to market. The headquarters may be 50, 100 miles away, two countries away. But how does it affect that worker who may be coming to your space? So in that way, in some ways, some of that is really brand buzz and biz development. And then so that you have to work with the different channels that Jackie really knows on how to then coalesce that.
Yeah, you raise a really interesting point there too, and just knowing who your community is, know who you should be targeting in general. And there are very different demographics when it comes to co-working. It is sometimes it's the hybrid, sometimes it's the remote worker, sometimes it's the passing through worker. So in terms of who you're targeting and making sure that your marketing efforts are directed at that specific demographic. I'm curious from you, Jerome, just on our poll, if you just being an owner and operator on the like boots on the ground, I'm curious if you can speak to the channels that are working for you right now from that list.
Yeah, we have only ever focused on SEO. We have done very little on the social media front. Our social media front, when we did try for as little or as much effort as we did, was always just about long tail and brand buzz, nothing about actual conversions. We have yet to meet someone who could say, hey, for every $1,000 you put in, you will convert $400 in 3.5 months, boom, boom, boom. And SEO seems to be the most quantifiable way to get an ROI out of that and trackable. I mean, I think part of it is our industry doesn't have as many co-working, social media marketing consultants there in other industries. So that part of it is just lack of talent. And of course, it's also just an industry lack of knowledge of what does work. If you were to go to the hotel industry, they could probably give you social media consultants for, 2 queen size bedroom suites, and they have someone who just specializes in that, and versus someone who has a great restaurant downstairs. So like, it's just a different, younger industry.
Yeah, interesting. And
so we do SEO specifically, and then that's
Yeah.
split apart between the paid ad keywords and then also the Google Business Profile. And just so everyone knows, like Google Business Profile, if you haven't done it, is basically our leg up against every other big competitor out there, because you can have a just to say, a big aggregator advertising in your market, but because they don't have a physical presence in your market, you always have a equal or better footing because you have a place-based marketing generator that they can't compete with. And it shows up on the map. It shows up on certain results. So.
Great tip. For you, Jackie, I'm curious as well what channels, maybe they're on the list of that poll or not. And the poll is really interesting because we are actually seeing the majority of respondents, organic social is the largest channel that at least the people who are on this webinar are saying is working for them. And then referrals coming in second. So for you, Jackie, I'm curious what your thoughts are on what's consistently performing well or maybe underperforming out of that list in the industry.
Yeah, so we're in a completely different camp than everybody else. Social doesn't really work for us, organic social. We don't really get a ton of referrals just because our audience really isn't on these channels as much. We always get really good conversion on Google Ads. We've been experimenting with paid social, mostly LinkedIn, and that's paid off really well for us. SEO is a challenge for us. We're always competing with all the channels and the aggregators in some of our regions because we're in like San Francisco, Sacramento, and these other kind of big hubs that are, a little bit more traditional when it comes to using these spaces. And we're always competing with Regis also in those areas and the other big players. So that's where we spend probably like about a third of our marketing dollars is on Google PPC. And that's kind of always what we've done. And it's done really well for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to also, maybe this is for both of you, but probably Jerome, just given the size of your team or organization, any tips this is from Chris, by the way, who's in the audience, any tips for small one-person marketing teams in a smaller market? So biggest challenges aren't competing with other spaces, but more so with home offices and the knowledge gap on advantages of shared space. Great question, Chris. And this was actually one of the questions that we talked a lot about at Coworking Canada, the conference last year, at the end of last year, and this came up as well. So Jerome, maybe I'll pass that one off to you to start with.
Yeah, so I started with one space in 2008. I've grown to as many as 7 or 8 spaces over the years. I've closed a couple. Now I'm at 5 locations. So just so you understand the benchmark, we're working with a team of about 10 people. Half are on site and half are either hybrid or remote. I've outsourced some things to specialists who no longer live in LA. Uh, so I guess I'm categorized as small business and relatively small, but I do have a little infrastructure in there. Uh, LA is one of the gateway cities, so I'm dealing with a huge metropolis. Just so you understand, LA County is 10 million people. The entire state of Colorado is 6 million. The entire state of Georgia is 10 million. So we have a 75 miles northwest, north south, 75 miles east west. That's 10 million people. So for us, SEO is the absolute number one thing to do because it kind of gets us through the crowd and all the noise. But what I've understood over the years, but from people who've done like A/B testing, Craig Bowdy over in Colorado has done a lot of this testing, and Jamie Russo has done it as well, and they've talked about it. In general, smaller, more rural markets, social media will be your best bet. SEO is relatively cheap, but there's not a ton of clicks relative to that to bother with. And rural and smaller markets, there seems to be more like emotionally a need for community because people are spread out. And social media will connect those people. So therefore, they will see the ads, they will respond and engage to the posts that you do there. So I'd recommend focusing on social media, and it's relatively cheap and free. Uh, and if you are someone who likes social media, then this will be like really easy. If you're not, that this will be like psychologically hard to do as part of your habit, and you may have to just do like schedule posts every now and then so that you don't feel like you have to do it all the time. It will be a burden and it'll be painful as a result. So you really have to check with yourself and what is easy for you, because when you're dealing with a small marketing team, you're gonna have to get the best bang for your buck, which means what is easy for you, what's the most impactful for you. And therefore, a smaller market, I would really focus on social, and then there you have to look at your audience. Look, I don't even use TikTok. I've never turned it on. I may have to because my 13-year-old may get on it soon. That said, it also may not exist. So whether or not it's worthwhile on TikTok, despite how successful it has been for many businesses, is a question mark. And so when you look at Instagram and Facebook, or even next door, each one has a target demographic. So you're going to want to understand that. If you're in a smaller market, my guess is that your demographic will skew on the older side, which means Facebook and even next door. Instagram less so, although it is much more visual. So again, like you got to understand what's comfortable for you to get the most bang for your buck and where your audience is, and maybe just try one and layer it on top of each other. We again have never really focused on social media because it's never found it successful. Like I admittedly, I admit that we're probably never been that great at it, despite LA being a very social media city.
Thank you for that, Jerome. That's a lot of, in terms of what you've already experimented with, that's a lot of really great advice. And very interesting as well, considering the smaller, and Chris is actually from Winnipeg, Canada. He's added an extra note in the chat, which is really helpful. Currently using outsource our AdSense and website, but all other channels are one marketer. And Winnipeg is an odd spot. It's also a very cold spot. I hope you're staying warm, Chris, because it's an urban center, but with rural sensibilities. That's a really great point. So went hard on social for 8 months and then had limited direct lead gen. One thing I would add for this specific question, Chris, and just to sort of piggyback on Jerome's comment around the size of the communities and where people are comfortable finding connection. I've had really good conversations with other co-working owners in smaller hubs, and referrals, like referral programs and boots on the ground where you're getting people to say, hey, I'm currently going to launch, or I'm in this co-working space and it's amazing. That seems to be one of the most common and effective routes that I hear from co-working owners in smaller hubs. That the power of word of mouth it's really hard to compete with. So having really strong referral programs and also networking events where people can see and feel, I think is some really good feedback and advice I've heard.
Yeah, if I could just add on that real quick, partially because I've been doing this for a very long time. We have customers who have come be a member while an employee for 3 different companies. Like they come back, they leave. Literally 5 years later, five, which is the lifespan of many co-working spaces as it is, they come back and they are with another company. 5 years later, they started a business. So like we literally have over 17 years, same person, three
Mm.
different companies, but it took 5 years for them to get back. So, again, with someone who has been doing this for a while, I would say like hang in there, be patient, because everything that you do will have a return. You just haven't seen the timeline yet for that return yet. And you may not have the luxury to wait it out that long, but know that you are making an impact. Someone is listening. You just have to figure out like how to do a faster conversion rate and everything. But I have seen so many times that people have come back, people have done a trial day and actually then come in until like 2 years later. And like, who can predict that? So.
Jackie, I want to make sure you have a moment to speak on this as well. And then I want to ask you one final question before we dip into automations and AI.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Yeah, I was going to say what you said, networking events, like get them in the space, get them seeing the space, host something fun, light, and get people engaged in meeting each other. Yeah, and you can piggyback on that with the referral programs. I don't know if you have good signage. Getting like a sandwich board out there, like our centers are pet friendly. We have a QR code for a free day pass. We put it out front and people are like, oh, what is this? Like, this has Wi-Fi and I can bring my dog and, whatever you want to put on there. If you are in a more urban area and you're getting foot traffic, that could be helpful for you as well. So.
Nice. And then I think also in terms of to maybe build on this question of what are some good tactics and tips here, I want to ask this question for you, Jackie, because if you are using social media, if that does work for your demographic, what marketing content do you see being really effective for attracting leads?
Yeah, honestly, for us, it's going to be like the kind of feel good content, like the event or people getting together, people having fun. And for conversion, we see the best on promotions. We run a cyber deal or something like that, and that's the best way that we get conversions. It's kind of like low hanging fruit. But like Jerome said, it's not necessarily about attracting a lead right then and there. We just did a roundtable at PAC with all of our managers about social media. And the biggest complaint I got was, how do I know what I'm doing goes anywhere or does anything? And it's hard because just because you're not getting a ton of likes or a ton of engagement on that post doesn't mean that people aren't seeing it. They're not seeing it when they Google you, when they research your space. Sometimes, even when they're just scrolling and it comes up on a For You page, that can happen too. So you just don't know. So just keep working at it is really what I would say, even if you don't see those conversions.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That was, we've spent a good 20 minutes just talking about marketing, and I know it could be its own conversation entirely, but thank you for the questions. Great comments as well. We had Samantha is also popped into the chat saying, we have 2 resident pop-ups, Picture Book, an independent bookshop, and Boxing Day Cafe, and people are finding those first and then coming to see the co-working space. And I love that tip, Samantha, or sharing what's working. I think also, particularly in if you have a little bit more of a city center, having really strong collaborations and partnerships to be able to promote through that. And again, it kind of comes back to that word of mouth. If you're promoting yourself at one of the coffee shops or at a dog washing place because you're a dog friendly, it's again that power of word of mouth. So. And thank you, Max, as well, for your comment. Word of mouth has been key, aside from events and loyalty programs. That's a great tip as well, loyalty programs. What other grassroots or community-driven marketing strategies have you seen proven effective? Great question. Maybe Jerome's already typing. Jackie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, we've done things like a free day pass card on like takeout orders at like local restaurants where they like staple it to the bag. We are talking to local animal shelters to put in the new adoption packet, like a free, month of co-working or whatever it is, to attract people in. Just going around your neighborhood. In our Santa Cruz location, our manager there, he knows every business owner in like a 5 to 10 mile radius. And they have so many after hours events because they know him, they know he has the space, they know that they can accommodate. And just being that like face of your center and kind of like the mayor about town. And if that's a burden to you, like Jerome was saying, there's other more passive ways to go about it, like leaving cards at a business and kind of reciprocating that and taking their information and displaying it. Doing something with an artist, like a paint and sip night, and then recruiting people from that. That's something fun and out of the box. It doesn't have to be all networking and shaking hands and business stuff.
Great ideas. Okay, well, feel free to keep dropping any questions in the question tab. We're going to pivot into the next area of our conversation today, which is around automation and AI and technology in general. And so, again, one of the questions that we asked at the end of, or in 2024, was how much value do you place on automation in your co-working space? We had almost 60% of our clients say very important. And there's actually a good number of clients that I've seen on this call today who are advocates for it, and I've had great conversations with. So I'm glad they're here. And if you have any tips from, or any of those clients who want to share tips in the chat, please feel free. But we do know that this is something, if you're not thinking about it, if you're not thinking about how automation is impacting your time, if you're not thinking about how it's impacting your revenue, then you're likely getting left behind. So I want to, again, pivot into more questions around technology. The first thing that I want to dive into is the approach at building out a co-working tech stack that helps with automating the space. So we can maybe dive in. Jackie, I'll start with you. Anything that you're thinking about for Pacific Workplaces that is helping to drive automation, the co-working tools or the tech stack that you're developing to help power the space and automate more of your team's work?
Yeah, so last year we switched from Salesforce to HubSpot, and that has been really, really great for our team. We really like the CRM. However, we don't have a ton of automation in our tech stack. So this is a great topic because we're in the trenches of this currently, and we are creating all these comparison grids to see how much time it's taking us to use X and Y and Z. And there, it's hard because a lot of these companies are coming out with new things, even just this year, and these new syncs. And we haven't, to be perfectly honest, it's really hard. Like, we have not found the secret sauce yet. We haven't found the exact way to do this. So we have implemented a few external tools outside of our, I guess, regular tech stack. So we use Yardi Cube and Voyager. We're in HubSpot. But then we also have, like, in our centers, we've got like Easy Printing and Salto Lock System and, a few others here and there. So there's a lot of manual work happening currently. We have some new things coming down the pipe that we hope will help with this, but we are constantly looking at how we can automate more. And something that we use, which I think will bleed into our next topic, is an AI sales agent that takes our web form inquiries and fields those. And that has actually been a huge help in our automation for working leads. And we do have those integrated into our HubSpot. So
nice.
It's just tough for the managers because we have all these extra manual entries they have to put in, from our channels and our aggregators. Those don't automatically go into our CRM. And yeah, it's a 2025 project for sure. So I don't have the right answer.
No, but thank you for sharing your insights, especially just being that you're in that transition. It's admirable to see that, all companies are going through this and they have to be going through this. We did launch a poll, so feel free to dive into the poll tab at the bottom right and give some feedback on what technology you're currently using in your co-working space. Would love to see what people are thinking about or already using. Jerome, maybe I'll pass that off to you as well as a question of how you're approaching your co-working stack for BLANKspaces.
Yeah, our CRM we use is Pipedrive, and I think our decision for that is probably similar to the size of our companies. We looked at HubSpot and we couldn't afford it. I also have a philosophy against using a software that I have to hire a consultant just to get it set up, that was our assessment at the time. This was 2021. So we chose Pipedrive, and we use that to automate a lot of our workflow. We have a plugin for the contact us form on the website. So when someone fills that in, it shows up as a lead in Pipedrive that then has 3 follow-up tasks, same day, 1 day later, 3 days later, to get to so that the staff gets an automated email that says you got to follow up and then check. And then when you want to turn it into a deal where they're actually interested about something, convert to a deal that then has its own workflow about, follow up in 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, etc. Put the value of the deal on there. What are you trying to sell to them? And for our case, we also, filtered out by location. Oh, they're interested in a virtual office at Culver City versus or they were interested in a hot desk over in Venice. So all that has its own workflow. We even have a workflow now just for events because our Venice spot can handle like really 300, 400 person style events. So we have an event workflow just for that. Like the automation could be anywhere, really. Anytime you find yourself like repeating something, see if you can automate it. And I'm not talking about just automations as in like some bot is going to do this to that. I mean, yes, that's AI and all that. I'm talking about also just templates. Again, I've been doing this for a while, and we've had a lot of hiring at some point. We hired like 6 or 8 people in one year, which is a lot for us. We have a template just on the hiring process. So when someone starts, our onboarding process for the employee is we do this on day 1, we do this on day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, week 3, 3 months in, 6 months in. And that week 1 is get their ID all the way down to the W-4 form and then move away across. So like some of it could just be templates, which goes to my next thing about helping to automate is you might want to have templates of canned responses. So someone who wants a virtual office, this will be your canned response that your staff can just refer to. They can tweak it, but they have something to start with, so they're not looking at an empty piece of paper. One tool that I use that I don't find a lot of people using that I think that was a total game changer for us was a software called Missive. It's basically email. And there was a time when Slack was super popular, but when you look at like kind of the aftermath of that, Slack really tried to reduce email, but you really ended up with less email and more chats. And so you really had 2 silos, and that's really 2 tech stacks. And they didn't always like cross over much. So if you were chatting with a member or a staff member, all your information was here, and then all your information was here. They didn't cross over. So you're like, what did I put it? I put it over here. And it's like this crazy mess. Missive is a software that's built on top of Gmail. It pulls in Gmail, pulls in Outlook and others, but those are the 2 main ones. And it layers on top of that and puts the chat in there. So imagine if you're using Gmail and GChat, all information is in 2 different silos. What it does is it merges it. So we can chat independent, have a chat discussion with, Jane Doe over here as my staff member or a group of people related to that location or marketing team or whatever. But I can chat on an email. So instead of forwarding emails back and forth between staff or such, a customer can email us, the staff can chat about it, negotiate the deal internally and say what's the high low that you'll take for this, and then email back. And then if a staff member starts the email and says, I'm kind of stuck over here, it's like live editing, he can pass off the email to me, I can finish it in and pass it back, and then they send it. So it's like a Google Doc that's live with a GChat and the Gmail all smashed into one. I believe HubSpot actually does that. If you have that, if you turn on that feature, I've since learned that it does that. You can send and receive email like that, but it's also built in with the chat. Had I known that, I might have paid for it. But anyways, Missive integrates with Pipedrive really well. So from then the Missive thing with the integration, I can say, create a deal, so as the plugin, without having to go into Pipedrive. So the tech stack was so that it's really convenient. It's like front and center. You're only looking at it with an email thing. You can chat, you can email, you can receive text messages, you can create the deals in Pipedrive, all like in one view.
Really collaborative. And you said 2 things there that are really important, Jerome. Integrations is one piece of any tech stack that is essential to streamlining your resources, but also your time and your efficiency. So if you are using multiple tools right now, which you probably are, if you're thinking about, your co-working software, if you're thinking about maybe your access control system, your accounting software, if there's an opportunity to integrate and bring these things together, you are automatically reducing part of the manual work of managing 2 softwares simultaneously. Integrations, if you are not thinking about it, I would highly recommend thinking about it. And the other piece that you said there, Jerome, is templates. And this is something that we do at Optix, and we do it well. We're probably, or I think we are the only one in the industry doing it, but having those templates ready to go, they're sending without you even thinking about it, reduces so much risk. And that's one of the parts of automation and AI that is so exciting for co-working, is that by bringing in this automation where you have a new lead, let's say, great. I mean, for Optix, it would be, we're going to automatically send this email that has, hey, thanks for booking your tour or your inquiry or whatever it might be. Here's everything you need to know. And then it's creating tasks automatically for your team. Just by that being done for you, you just reduce the risk that that lead isn't going to get lost on a spreadsheet or somewhere else. And there's always a moment for the personal touch and for sales and to be in conversation with your leads and members. But reducing the risk by automating with pre-made templates, by curated emails, is super essential to pushing the needle in your business, and I'd say converting as many leads as possible. I want to be very cognizant of time because we are at, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I have a feeling we'll probably be going over because there's still 2 more topics that both Jerome and Jackie have so much knowledge on. So I think I'll pivot. Thank you for everybody who answered the poll as well. It's really interesting to see that co-working software is definitely the dominant one right now, and CRM coming in second. Having that combination is powerful. So it's really great to see that. And then for those folks who are using accounting as well as a access control system and project management, any opportunity to integrate these would be, I think, a great step if you're not thinking about it. So pivoting a little bit into virtual mail. And Jerome, I'm going to kick this one off with you, just given all of your experience. So virtual mail, it's blown up in the last few years, and it's a really hot topic. We get a lot of questions about it from clients. We also see it as an add-on where maybe a client is launching. So co-working space launches with all of their initial offerings, and then they get to a point where they go, okay, great, maybe there's more, and maybe I can offer more. Virtual mail comes in as that sort of next level of business offerings. So I want to get your thoughts, Jerome, first on virtual mail, and whether or not you think all operators should be offering it.
Yeah, definitely everyone should be offering it. I think it's a great way for people to always stay in touch with your business, even if they're not needing to physically come in that much. It was actually a total leper of a business, even as early as 6 or 8 years ago. A lot of co-working spaces said they'll never do virtual mail. It's a disgusting type of business for them. And it's like, whatever, there's not enough member engagement. But, come the pandemic, everyone's like, wow, look at this thing. So I think you should definitely do it. The business has completely evolved to the point where it's very operationally can be intensive. It is technically very nuanced and detailed. It's legally very liable. And then your customers have a higher risk of being bad customers. So like all that said, it sounds like it's not a great business, but as a subscription business that you can build upon, has an infinite inventory better than anyone else. And this is the part where I want to draw, Kelly. I'll use my hands, but when you're selling offices, you might have 10 offices, you might have 20 offices, 50 private offices to sell. And everyone's like, yes, that's always the best money maker, makes the most money and all that stuff, right? So the sales can be up like this, really straight. And virtual offices are very, very flat in that it takes a long time to build up monetarily. So like when I say like this, you can sell $1,000, $10,000, $50,000 a month relatively quickly because they're a hot item and the dollar amounts are so high. Virtual office seems very slow because you're selling at like $50, $80, $100 a month. And you're like $50 versus $500 or $1,000 for an office. You'd have to sell a lot. But over time, again, being patient, as someone has been doing this for a long time, it can build up to a $10,000 a month business based out of a mailroom that's only 10 by 10. And that costs almost nothing. It's a shelf, it's some file folders or mailboxes. It's almost nothing. But every single private office you build out is thousands of dollars. It's also a lot of permits, construction, disruptive construction, all that. I know it sounds great, but I gotta tell you, from like kind of comparing myself to so many operators over the years, the big ones and the small ones, the ones that are venture backed and all that, like everyone with all those offices and massive footprints, they have spent ridiculous amount of money. We're talking about $100, $200 a square foot, 20,000 square feet. I mean, we're talking $4 and $5 million budgets. If you don't have that resource, if you don't have that risk appetite, that is not a business you want to get into at a high office kind of thing. You may also not even aesthetically like a heavy office type of space. You may want a more open format because it's kind of your vibe. Just understand that while that is sort of the de rigueur and the standard among the industry, like don't have any FOMO about it because it's an expensive risk to take. And I've always kind of played the middle of the road on that, for better or worse. But with over time, you can build up a virtual office business as a result. So like, just think of it as an owner there. But once you get into the details of it, you have to follow these things, what's called CMRA, with the post office every quarter. And then to a post office, we may not even know what CMRA is. So it's very frustrating. There are softwares out there like Piloto, SpearMail, Anytime Mailbox that help you both generate leads for virtual offices, but also manage your everyday operations for that. Take a look at that. I heavily use Piloto and SpearMail. Each one has their pros and cons, as you can imagine. But I think those are kind of the two more popular ones to help manage a virtual office.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you for those very tangible suggestions there too, for anybody who is looking for software or more information on virtual mail. And Pablo, just to answer your question, yes, virtual mail is referring to literally that mail, but it's arriving in the physical. You don't necessarily have a physical membership though. If I was a member on a virtual mail membership, I'm, paying a monthly fee or subscription to have my mail sent to an address. And that's also something that we saw really boom during the pandemic, where businesses might have closed their brick and mortar, but they still needed an address to obviously be a business. And so they were using co-working virtual mail memberships to have that address accessible. So, and hopefully that answers the question, Pablo. Maybe over to you, Jackie. I know that the virtual mail side is not anything that you would have your hands in the space, but being in marketing, is there anything that you're seeing work around this, or anything that you'd like to share in terms of marketing and how to do it effectively?
Yeah, so I lightly have my hand in this, but PAC has been doing virtual mail forever, for over 20 years. And at one point it was 35% of our portfolio, which is crazy, of our revenue. I know, and it has declined slightly in the past. I would say probably, it's so hard to count the COVID years, but if we're removing the COVID years, the past 5-ish years, it's declined. It's probably about 30% now. And I would say that the demand is changing, the customer base is changing, and to pay attention to that. So one of our sister companies is called Cloud Answering, and it's a live answering service. We have virtual receptionists. So it was something we offered with our virtual office packages. We did a survey, we did a usage study, and we realized nobody's using the answering. So why are we offering it? Why are we charging for it? So we reconfigured all of our packages for 2025 based on this data. And we rolled those out, and we're really hoping that increases the usage. It makes a lower barrier of entry for people who are comparing us to competitors, and it helps us streamline our answering service as well. So I would say just look at your demand, look at your packages. Are they getting usage? Are they not? And go from there. And I think we lost Jerome.
We lost Jerome.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be back in a moment. But with that, I think we'll pivot. So we've talked a lot about marketing, and I want to continue to sort of bring it in back to the conversation that, and welcome back, Jerome. But want to sort of bring it, or full circle here, back to where we were when we're talking about how member experience and even things like events and networking, and I want to bridge all of that and think about member experience in general. So for you, Jackie, maybe I'll start with you. But in terms of how you're thinking about member experience as part of the brand and marketing for Pacific Workplaces, would love to learn a little bit more about what you're focusing on and the trends that you're seeing working.
Yeah, for us, we focus a lot on training our staff because they make the experience for the members. Like they are there on site. Every center is so unique in our portfolio. Our Santa Cruz center is nothing like our Soma San Francisco location. Our Roseville location is nothing like our Sacramento J Street location that's right downtown next to the I think it's the Golden One Center, and I'm not a sports person. But for us, for the marketing side, we make sure we invest really heavily in training and our community managers. So that is in-person quarterly meetings, monthly roundtables, bi-monthly webinars. We're constantly getting people together to brainstorm, say, what are you doing at your center? What are you doing on your social? You know, how can we adopt that across the board and make it work and just make everything better and bring more people in? And it's so cool because every single one of our managers is so invested. They want to know how they can do marketing, how they can do boots on the ground efforts. And it's really neat to empower them with that. And it's cool because we've nurtured people. We get a lot of people moving from coordinators up to managers. We've had a lot of people on staff for a long time. As a result, we've had members that have been with us for 20 years. We have a community manager that's been with us just about that long as well. So I think it's hard to build if you're new, but as you're going forward, look at that. Say, how am I investing internally so that gets paid back with our members and comes back around to the company?
Nice. And I actually noticed on your channel, you even you have content about this is our team doing the work to like learn more and grow, which is cool. Like you're actually sharing with your followers that your team is working hard to continue to give a great member experience. And I think that's a nice touch. So I don't know if that was you who's doing those posts or not, but
that is Isabella. She's on our marketing team. She is also our Roseville coordinator, and yeah, everybody's so invested. It truly is like a family that's been built over these years, and it's been very intentional. It didn't just happen by accident. So I think that's the power that you can take is say, what environment do I want to build, and how are we going to do that for years to come?
Yeah, that's great advice. Jerome, over to you. I'll probably make this one of the last questions, just given the time. And we do have a couple of questions in the chat that I want to make sure that we have a quick moment to speak to. But your thoughts, Jerome, on any trends in member experience that maybe you're seeing emerge over the last year and where you think it's working?
Having kind of endured through the pandemic when we lost a lot of events, there seems to be a real appetite for events again, both small and large. But I think the need for the meeting rooms is even more so than before. So kind of time both virtual office and this current, you should see in meeting rooms and almost on a regular basis. They'll use it on every fourth Friday, first Friday of the month, Wednesday of the month, weekly standing meetings. They might even book it, pay for it, don't use it because they just want to know that they have it every single time. And that will address the remote and hybrid teams. But having the meeting rooms, people working from home, remotely working, or at the coffee shop or home, they can't meet there, so they'll come in and use that. That's just meeting rooms. And for events, there's more appetite for that, but I think you have to really be careful about your demographic. If you have parents, you can't have an event past like 3:30 because they'll never show up. Maybe actually want to have a happy hour at 2:00. That is their happy hour time. Or maybe 7:00 or something like that. So we're definitely seeing an uptick on the event side. For member engagement.
Which is also, again, often a marketing opportunity. I've worked with clients who use their monthly or biweekly happy hour as bring a friend and introduce them to the space. And it's, in terms of an investment, it's beer or wine or whatever you're offering. And it's not a large investment to say, hey, we've invited X amount of guests to join and had the chance for them to see the space, meet and experience the brand in person. In terms of, I guess, last little bit here, Jerome, just a question for you. You spoke, Jackie, to how you're investing in community managers as part of your brand. What are your thoughts, Jerome, on the community manager role and maybe, again, people operations managers, anybody who's working on site and how they are contributing to your member experience?
Yeah, community managers are going to make or break your space. We're even testing a space that doesn't have a community manager assigned to it, so sort of an automated space. More and more of the regional brands that have multiple locations have been testing that. Um, that said, like managing staff is really, really difficult. I gotta say, it's so hard. And I'm probably definitely not a good people manager in that regard. Once I've stepped away from it, I hired a director of ops 2 years ago. It's been much better. I'm sort of like the fun uncle that comes in, buys coffee for people, and leave, but on a day-to-day basis, don't manage all that. But I have. I would say for most people, like from hiring probably hundreds of people over the years now, is there's three buckets for managers, in my opinion. There's sales, operations, and like marketing, uh, or maybe sales operations and like management slash technology. It would be really the real thing. Most managers are good at one, maybe two out of those three. You'll never get all three, never. So when you hire, embrace the fact that there is one big weakness or one or two great strengths, and then you have to supplement to backfill. This person will be very outgoing, very sales oriented, runs good events, but when it comes to administrative work, billing, and all that, they are a catastrophe. So then you have to automate all that, or you have to have someone else to do that, where you have to be ready to step in for that. Someone's very good operationally, and if you will find out after they're there for you for like 6 or 12 months or 24 months, they really rather have a backroom job. There's an inbox, they get a stack of work, they process it, put an outbox, and they're out. They don't want to interact with people at all, yet somehow they said they wanted to be a community manager at some point. So just embrace that reality when you hire people. There is no unicorn that does all three categories.
And I guess thinking about the categories too, in terms of your experience, I think it's a good oversight of, even your technology is impacting your member experience.
Yeah.
I think that's often overlooked, especially in small co-working spaces. It's a conversation I have with a lot of owners, founders, where they're thinking they have to be in the space and put all of this energy into meeting people, creating this great wow experience. But there's a lot of power in even automating the check-ins to be like, hey, wow, you joined a month ago. How's it going? Or sending that email at the 3-month mark to be like, wow, it's been 3 months. We'd love for you to write us a review. Having those automated touch points, which is something that we do with Optix. But however, whatever systems you're using, thinking about how you can be doing more of those little personal touches, even automated. So we have talked about so much, and I know that we are over time. There's been some really, really great questions, and I'm glad we took the time to go through them. There was another question from Michelle around opening, which is exciting. Congratulations on your upcoming first location, Michelle. Would love to hear anything that you think would be helpful for a new co-working operator. And we've talked about so much today that hopefully helps. But maybe, Jerome, rapid fire, if you got 20 seconds to just give a hot tip to Michelle as she's getting ready to open.
Yeah, I had responded already saying that host as many events as you can, because that's both a lead gen and a tour all in one. It would be operationally intensive. You got to provide drinks, got to clean up. That part is a mess, but I think events is the best way to go. I would never host a opening party, a launch party. That is the biggest money waste, because people just come for free drinks and stuff. I would have a cadence of Monday events and Wednesday events, or maybe a monthly event, and just build those up. But to have one big bang launch party made it feel good. But I think that budget line item could be used much better elsewhere. You could spread it across 6 events at the same rate. I'm in LA, so we're the city of cool people and Hollywood and all that. So this part is a prejudiced opinion. I wouldn't normally work with a local chamber of commerce in order to build to to build a book of business. But if you're in a smaller town, I think Chamber of Commerce seems to be absolutely critical. It's just a matter of like, it's a big fish in a small pond, but Chamber of Commerce is a small fish in a big pond. Also, they tend to have more traditional tactics and older demographics, which traditionally has not been ideal for co-working. It might be now, but like in general. So we have not worked with Chamber of Commerce, but if you're in a smaller market, absolutely reach out to your tourism board, your Chamber of Commerce, any scores and other ones, SBA, any of those kind of like government and non-governmental kind of organizations. Tap into those. Even if they do a blast out, they're reaching out to people, they'll market for you because they're happy to get a small business up and running.
Really good. The Chamber of Commerce, that has actually come up. I've had I've had conversations with co-working spaces in small spaces who really lean on that, or even business, community business initiatives. One other thing, Michelle, just as a quick tip, I would say if you have the opportunity to get as many referrals in that first couple of weeks and have, a couple of Google reviews, have people advocate for you, any champions you can find, it could be family and friends, but the people who are excited about your space opening, asking them to be the champion for you as quickly as you can. Jackie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, make sure people can find you. Make sure your Google business profile is filled out and accurate.
Nice.
Make sure you're on maps, on Google Maps, Apple Maps. Make sure you have signage, because that has been an issue for us in the past with opening new locations where we're buried in some building or we're not visible from the street or what have you. So that I think is a big one. And then, yeah, like Jerome said, not just the government agencies or local agencies, but also like whoever's around you, whoever's your business neighbor. Go meet them, go say hi. It's going to take a little while, but make sure everybody knows you, and then people will find you.
Nice.
Yeah. To that point about if it's hard to find, we have one location that's kind of like that. We shot a video on how to go from the sidewalk or from the street to then get into the space and then have it on fast forward. And people love like, oh, okay, then you don't even have to think. Look at the signs, you know exactly where to go. Just do that, put it on YouTube, and then when you say, hey, come on in, and then share the link, and they'll see it like, oh yeah, I got it. So that's been really useful for that one location that we have that's tucked to the back of the campus.
Yeah, and you could even put it in your email signature. So if you forget to send it to someone or they don't think to ask you, it's just like, find us here, and a little link with the video.
Yeah.
Great tips. And thank you, Pablo, for offering to leave Michelle a Google review without having visited, but that's very sweet. This is the global community of co-working and flex space that I love so much. There was another question just very briefly from Jason around Optix actually and mail handling. And there is a way to do this with visitor management. This is a really cool feature to the visitor management app, which I know you do have access to in your subscription. So I'm happy to send you an email, Jason, and share a little bit more about how you could be doing that inside of Optix if you'd like. And then I'm going to just very quickly pass it over to in the member experience and thinking about this community as a whole. I want to pass it over to Jerome and Jackie quickly to introduce a really exciting opportunity that's all in the spirit of this co-working community at large.
Yeah, it's Thursday, March 6th and Friday, March 7th. So it might be a little misleading. We did originally have it on Friday, Saturday, but we rescheduled because of all the fires in LA to a Thursday, Friday. So encourage you to come to LA. My campus is the former Snapchat headquarters, so it's sizable. We have an on-site gym, on-site restaurant. We're a mile from the beach. We're only 5 miles from the airport. It's all gated inside so that once you walk in, it's like a little oasis within the Abercrombie Venice neighborhood.
Yeah, it's like a vacation and also a workshop and conference. Anything that you want to add, Jackie, in terms of what people can expect from this conference upcoming in March?
Yeah, we're going to get more in depth with a lot of the stuff we talked about today and then some. And of course, there's going to be even more changes coming down the pipe this year. We're going to be talking about CMRA compliance. We're going to be talking about sorry, my microphone wigged out. We're going to be talking about the the changes with the FTC negative option rule, the click to cancel. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that. That is happening this year as well. There's a lot of important stuff, and it's going to be very, very easy to get around people and talk with them and have deep discussions. It's not going to be us on a stage talking at you. So I really encourage you, if you can make it, to come on down. It's going to be really, really valuable, and you'll get to answer a lot of questions that you probably had even come up from this webinar.
Yeah. And I think the power is also bringing so many international leaders and whether owners, operators from the co-working and flex space, when everybody comes together and you have the opportunity to see what other people are doing, what's working, what people are excited about experimenting with this year. There's a lot of inspiration from these events. So feel free to give the QR code a scan, and you can learn lots more about the Co-working Operators Weekend in March. And I just want to take a quick moment. I know we went super over time, but Jerome and Jackie, you are a wealth of information and experience. So thank you both so much for being a part of this conversation. We covered a lot, and there's still a lot more to learn, but we are looking forward to having the rest of that conversation in March with you in LA.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jenna.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy a wonderful rest of the day. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Everybody. Bye.